Good evening, everyone. We are back on Wednesday night. Tonight, we're going to be talking business. MJ, are you excited?
I'm excited because business is half of the phrase music business. So it's half at least of everything we have to do.
Pretty much. And it's an important part, especially for those of us who are entrepreneurs and are doing this basically as our main or sole income. It's things we can't ignore. We can't put on the shelf and not pay attention to. So tonight, we're going to go through and talk about a lot of cool stuff. For those of you who are in the chat tonight, if you have any questions or anything as we go through the night, put those into the chat room. I'm not going to be following the chat as much. That will be MJ's job tonight because I've got kind of the notes and such. This is some of the discussion and teaching and such that I am doing with our second, the small town business DIY, where we're going and talking to some of these rural businesses and kind of helping them put together their business to be successful, not only as a local business, but getting them on the web, and some are doing national business and such with sales and what have you. So I have to have this type of information for that, and it's like, wow, and someone asked about putting it together. It's like, it makes sense. We'll just move it to the DJ world. So this could be a two-parter. I'm not sure, but we're going to dive into it. We're going to talk first. I've got 10 little things that I threw together for those of you who are kind of debating. Now, most of you are already DJs and you're active in this, and most of you are already doing it as an official business. And I'm going to define for this segment tonight, official business is someone who basically is claiming that you exist in your taxes or on your tax forms, which a lot of us don't, but some do, many do. But if you don't, this tonight is going to give you some tips and such, or this will be the starting of getting you tips to make sure you're doing it and doing it right. If you are just starting and you're like, should I, shouldn't I? Well, the first 10 things are going to be things you need to think about before making that commitment to go and become a real business. So, MJ, I'm going to start right at the top with the very first one. If you are not a DJ yet, if you're thinking about going out and getting involved with this, my recommendation is basically don't do it.
That's pretty harsh.
And the reason I say don't do it is that unless you can't live without performing, if you could take it or leave it, I would highly recommend leaving it to the side. Go work for a different company. Don't go out and make this your main income. You've got to be someone who basically bleeds performing and being in front of a crowd and playing music. If you can do that, you're going to be successful at a level. If you don't do that and you're like, yeah, well, I need to find a way to make money, you're not going to be successful in this. MJ?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's to a level. I was just telling John a little bit ago about a friend of mine that at the same time when I stopped working a day job and went full-time DJing, he stopped full-time DJing and went to working a day job and DJing. And it was kind of neat that you have to figure out what you want and what like John said, is it something you need? Is it something you have to do, or if you can walk away? Because it's like running any other business. You got to invest. You got to be all in or all nothing.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not all in, it'll eat you and kill you down the road. So that was number one. Number two, get used to rejection, because you're going to be running as a business owner, as a salesperson, because you will be in sales, whether you're doing direct sales or you're trying to sell people on the songs for the dance floor. You're going to be receiving rejection. 90% of the time, that rejection is going to be coming in, and that leads into my next one, which is don't take things personally. A lot of that rejection we're going to be receiving, whether it's in sales because they chose someone else or they didn't like the particular song, we're going to feel that and take that personally. But most of the time, it's not them actually rejecting us personally or getting down on us personally. It's because they hate that song. I mean, that happens. That they really do like us, or they don't have an opinion. Most of the time, they just don't have an opinion left or right about us, but they're going to be because that's just how we react when we're in public. And if you're in New York, they would call you an effing idiot and to shut that crap off. And they still will come up and give you a hug and a kiss later because they love you. But that's how they do it. It's a different world. So number two, get used to rejection. Number three, don't take that rejection personally. Number four, again, these are making the jump to a business. If you're still teetering, these are some things to think about. Number four is, if you're going to do it, you need to surround yourself with positive people. There's so much negativity, and there's so many people who are like, yeah, that's a bad idea. You shouldn't be doing it. Well, you know what? We go back to number one. If it's something that you cannot live without, if you have that burning desire to be a performer, You need to do it, and you need to get some positive people around you who are going to be an uplifter and really help you to attain your goal of becoming a professional entertainer. There's so much negativity. MJ, you were talking about it online, just eats a person.
Yeah, if you know me, I'm a sensitive person. So I've learned, because I'm in this business and I'm committed to it, there are things that I literally have to do to help me avoid the negative people. And I actually have other DJs compliment me because I dodge the drama right and left. There is an attachment for Chrome for it's called a Facebook filter, and basically you can put words in your blacklist. No matter who posts something about that word, whether it be election or whatever, that post does not show up in your feed. And also eliminating, not defriending someone, but not like don't show their posts in my news feed will help you a lot, because people are going to be negative. So you, like John said, it's more than surrounding you with physical people. Since social media is something that we're always into all the time, that's something you have to guard also.
And that's so important, because how many people were so down from this past fall and winter as the arguments were going. I'm glad those have slowed down. That, or I've just unfriended enough of those people that I'm not seeing them anymore.
Either way, it works.
It works. Number 5, when you are going out on your own and becoming your own boss, you need to really mentally and really grasp the idea that you're going to work harder than you have ever worked before. In order to make a business, to start up and make it go, it's long hours, and many of those hours are leading into number 6, but you're not there. The compensation isn't there, but you've got to put those sweat equity hours in to build and get that business off the ground. Number 6 is, because of those long hours and poor pay, you're going to have to learn to live very frugally for your first few years as you're getting this business up and off the ground, because a lot of that income, that money that's coming in, is paying for gear, that's paying for upgrades, it's paying for something new, a direction you're going to want, whatever. It's paying for education. It's paying for your Starbucks. All of those things are things that you're going to have to figure out and prioritize, but you're going to have to be, you're not going to be able to live as well as you did before, say if you had a full-time job and you moved over to just being a full-time DJ. Okay, number 7. Look for learning opportunities before you're getting started in this, that you can find places to learn and not be spending a ton of money. There's a lot of great information, that we have a lot of great information. There's many, many good sources out there, and there's some that are kind of suspect a little bit, but look for those opportunities to learn that in areas in which you're not going to be spending a ton of money, but also ways you can learn and not lose business. So I'm recommending that you learn from other people, ask questions, and not be trying some things on your own and think, oh, I'm smarter than everyone else who tried that and failed. Think about it a little bit. Make wise decisions, but try to find opportunities to learn from others. Number 8, read, and then read some more. And then when you're done with that, get out there and read a little bit more. There's great information out there, and for some of you, you're not a reading person, Jimmy. But most of us, we can go and we'll read something, maybe we'll watch a video and read about it, whatever it takes. This is back to the educating yourself and spending time reading a good book, listening to the audiobook version of that book. There's just a lot of great information that's in bite-sized content now, and it helps tremendously when you're starting a business.
Another plugin for Chrome, along with the other one, is there's ones that will read the text to you. Because I'm like Jimmy. I always say I don't like reading, but I every time I open a conversation, I refer to an article or something I've read. So I read a lot, but there are plugins that you can highlight the text on a page and have it read to you while you're maybe doing something else, and it would still get you that same information.
That would be really, really helpful, because there's a lot. Yeah, I called John. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Jimmy's post just popped up. Okay, number 9. As you're going through and you're going to be developing your business, you need to be setting goals. And these goals that you have in your business might be something to do with income, your monetary side of it, or it might be a number of events, or it might be this or that or the other thing. But you need to have goals that are measurable in one way, shape, or form. And it also has to be something that you're going to evaluate on a regular basis. You can't just have a goal that I want to make $100,000 a year, and then 5 years later, you're like, gosh, I wonder how I did with that one. Or you can't have it say that I want to make a lot of money. It has to be something measurable, because if it's not, you're never going to know if you're doing well or if you're doing poorly.
Be detailed. Yeah, yeah.
And the final one of the 10 before we dig into the actual show tonight is you need to have an accountability network. And that generally is some people that are those positive people that are up above that we talked about earlier. You're getting 3 or 4 people that you're going to talk to on a regular basis that you'll be sharing, some of the things you're doing, some of your struggles, and some of the activities within your business. And they're going to be ones that'll say, so you were talking about wanting to go and visit those venues. Did you get around to doing that? Oh, no, I didn't. Well, why didn't you do that? Because they're going to hold you accountable. Accountability in this small entrepreneur world is so valuable because, again, they're going to basically make it so you're going to do things and hold you accountable to that. So you're going to be like, oh, wow, I better do that. Because, otherwise Wednesday morning when we have a group call, MJ's going to just read me the riot act again. And I don't want to do that. So put together an accountability network. So those are 10 things. Is you just wanted to get those out before we went into the steps. Now to actually... We decided that we want to have a DJ business, and we're like, okay, where do we start? Again, a lot of you have already got your business and you've got your names and different things. So this is going to be either old news for you, or it's going to be something that be like, oh, hey, I didn't think about doing that step. Whichever way it's going to work. I'm really gearing this part of the show for those who are like, oh, wow, I need to get started. And I'm, maybe you were with a multi-system and now you want to branch out on your own. This is kind of our steps to get that going. We've got about a half an hour before we need to switch shows. So we'll go and see how far we get. First thing you need to do is thinking about, in this day and age, is selecting a name for your business. It seems kind of common and very easy, but the hard part is actually finding a domain for your name, for your DJ business. Back, MJ, when we first started back in the late 80s, the name was like really easy. We just went to the Secretary of State's website and we searched for a name, and if it wasn't there, it was ours. And we'd file the paperwork and do different things with it. Today, if you come up with a really awesome name, you'll go and you'll be like, oh, hey, and then I want the domain for it. I want awesomedj.com. It's already taken. awesomedj.net, already taken. Org. But you end up having to find something, or you have to change your name. So finding your business name is one of the very first steps in what you're going to do. But tied in very closely is trying to find that domain that works with that. If you can't find a domain that's going to work with it in this day and age, that's probably going to be a limiting factor. The second side of that is that now, because of Facebook and social media, you almost have to be aware of, okay, can I go to Facebook? Can I get that facebook.com/awesome-mobile-dj? Or can I go to YouTube and get youtube.com/awesome-mobile-dj? If those things aren't available, it's a little flag that you need. And you also need to be checking these out and say, wow, okay, so Awesome Mobile DJ is available, .com is available, but over on Facebook, some drip has got Awesome Mobile DJ, and they're just... that's not going to look good because people will find that when they're looking for you. So there's all these different nuances for finding your name and getting those things put together that weren't there 20 years ago. Yeah.
It's a lot to tie into one single name, and that in itself is going to be a large research point for you.
It really is. And it's changed so much. As I mentioned earlier, that many states, you can go to the Secretary of State's office or their website, and you can do a search for names there, and that helps tremendously. But in this day and age, the state lines don't mean as much as they did back when we first started. Today, it's the website almost dictates more of what you need to be finding and such. So
there used to be a restaurant in town called Deja Vu Lounge, and I went to look for old pictures of it, and there must be hundreds of Deja Vu lounges around the country. So
yeah, and many of those Deja Vu lounges are gentlemen's clubs.
Oh, okay. I didn't pick that up from it.
Yeah, there's I think in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, there's a Deja Vu down there. I think a couple in Vegas. Yeah, so it's a very, very popular name.
Huh. Cool.
So once you get a name figured out, then you need to figure out the ownership of the legal structure of your business. Now, there's 4 different primary legal structures that are used. There's the sole proprietor, doing business as. Then you've got your LLC, which is a corporation that has some protection for you. Then you've got 2 different types of main corporations. The CCorp was the traditional, kind of the regular corporation that is the tried and true, been there forever. And there's the S-Corp that is the newer of the 2 that is really what a lot of people use. Is probably the S-Corp is the most popular one for the smaller business people that are out there that are doing kind of the mom and pop thing. Each one has some benefits and some drawbacks to that. So we're going to just talk about each one just briefly here. We'll start off with the cheapest one to do, and that is the the sole proprietor, which is basically what that means is that I'm going to, on my taxes, I've got to register as a sole proprietor and get my numbers, which we'll talk about later. But basically what's going to happen is the income is going to come in and it's going to show up on my income taxes on a Schedule C, and I can keep track of expenses and deductions and depreciation and all those different things, and it all comes in as income to me on my personal taxes. It's the cheapest one to set up. It's the easiest and quickest to set up. There's the least amount of work as far as maintaining it, managing it. We'll talk more about that within the corporations. The biggest drawback with doing a sole proprietor is that if someone would sue you for some reason, whether a speaker falls on someone or you miss an event or you botch an event so poorly that they can prove that you should be paying for the event, a sole proprietor, you're basically responsible for all the debt of the business. So if I'm out and I'm performing, my speaker falls over and lands on grandma, breaks her hip, and heaven forbid, she ends up in a hospital for 2 weeks, they would then sue me. And if my insurance decided that I was negligent in what I was doing and I did something risky that, grandma shouldn't have been involved, whatever, I could be on the hook for that. So sole proprietor, while it's the quickest and easiest, is something I would really kind of not recommend in this world. Now, for some of you who don't have anything to lose, that you're just starting out and you're like living in your apartment and you have like $5 to your name, okay, so what are they going to get if they sue you? That's a legitimate question, a legitimate thought. But for those who have a house and family and kids, and you've got some assets that you've accrued over the years, then you should be looking at one of the next three. We're going to start with the C Corp. The C Corporation is the more traditional one. This is the big one. That has the shares and the directors and all the different things. It's taxed as an individual. Basically, think about the C Corp as creating a new person. And that new person is going to be the one that is the business, and it's going to do its thing, and then it's going to be paying you. So there's tax there, and there's tax that go to you. There's different levels and such. Not used with entrepreneurs too terribly much because there's a lot of, with the boards, you've got to have minutes of your meetings, and you have to do different things. It can be used, but it's not recommended by very many attorneys and tax people unless you're running a very large business. Taking it down, the S Corp is probably the one that's used the most frequent by small businesses, mom and pop type businesses. The S Corp gives you the same protection as the C Corp, meaning that people would sue. They sue the corporation. It's a separate person from you. So the corporation is now bankrupt. You're still living in your house. You're still driving your car. You're protected. The LLC, S Corp, C Corp all can do that compared to the sole proprietor. The S Corp, though, has some additional benefits where income can flow through that into your personal account, and you're not getting double taxed like you would in the C Corp. So that's a huge benefit. You get the protection, you've got the ability to pass the things, so you're not getting double taxed. Both are very attractive. But you're also having to do more paperwork. There's a little bit more paperwork to do and board minutes and different things you have to do with it because it is still a corporation. The final one is a LLC, limited liability. The limited liability company is what it's called. And with an LLC, it's very much like the corporation where you've got the protection, so you can't be sued because, again, limited liability is part of the name, and the income and such can go through, which is really kind of nice. The thing with an LLC, and this is probably in the photo booth world, it's interesting. Most people go to LLC. They all jump on that one because it's fairly easy to do. There's a little bit of paperwork, but you can get it put together fairly quickly. Of the three, you'd have to figure out which one's the best for you. The best way to do that is to talk to your accountant, the person you're going to be using for that, or you spend $100 and get an attorney for an hour. Most will do a business consult for about $100 for an hour with maybe one of their legal aides, and find out which one is going to be the best for your situation. MJ, when you get into DJs who are just playing in clubs and such, do you think any one of these four? Do you think they even think about that, or are they just running under their own name?
For most, they don't even go as far as getting an EIN number. But now with a lot of the places that I deal with, even just being going in for a night, I have to invoice with an EIN number just to get a paycheck. But some places will give you, cash or just sign a check to anybody. But it has changed a lot where before it was just a guy going and doing day labor as a DJ, but now it's getting a little bit more to where we have to invoice and you get the, what's it, 1099 at the end of the year and all that kind of stuff. So it's changing, but most don't think about it, but it's always good to plan ahead.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why some of these steps, it's good to have. And for one of, just having that protection from the corporation. I see Jimmy in the chat room mention that Delaware and South Dakota are two, and Nevada are spots that it's very easy to get in a corporation. They're cheap to do that, and they are it's quicker that way. And all this can be done online. I mean, we established a corporation in Minnesota, and we've also established a corporation in South Dakota. Within hours, you can have these things. Back when we did this in the early 90s, we had to go down to the Secretary of State and stand in line and do different things. And Jimmy, we'll talk about cash when we get into setting up accounts, which is number 4 here tonight. Cash is can be an evil thing when it comes to this little business we have.
Yeah, I personally hate it when people pay me in cash because it stresses me that I have to cover for it and stuff.
Yeah, you have to figure out what you're going to do with it. And by the way, everything we're talking about is mainly from experience, from my experience and what I have observed. This isn't financial or any kind of legal advice. This is me basically sharing with you some of my experience of what I've heard from people, what I have personally done, and your situation is going to vary. So take this, think about it, and then go and ask some experts in your area, because state by state is different and even county by county. Okay,
yes.
So we've got our name and we figured out our legal structure. Now it's time to get into a business plan. And a lot of you probably have watched some of the shows where Drax and I have talked about business plan, and that can be a days-long event. And I don't want to get into that. I'm going to give you 9 little points to putting together like a 1-page business plan, because really a business plan is kind of an organizing your thought process is the best way to describe it. You can go and you can have these elaborate business plans that's going to make your head spin, and people are like, "Oh, do you have a business plan?" Well, you know what? Really, it's going to be a little bit of a guide, and it can be simple and it can be really, really complicated. Most of the complicated ones are only done because that there's a manager that told an underling to put together a business plan and make it look awesome, so that now he can show it to his superior. That's where these big ugly ones came from. The real world, you don't need to have a big ugly one.
I like the word you used, guide.
Yeah, it's a guide. So the first thing in a business plan, what you need to do is you're going to need to identify the people you're going to be selling to. How are you going to make money, and with whom are you going to make that money? So we're going to talk about the who first. My customers. Well, in my particular case, I would be, say if I'm a wedding DJ, I'm going to identify that I'm going to be doing weddings. I'm aiming for couples that are kind of in this kind of a price range bracket, what have you, and they're looking for this type of a service, and that, so you can really identify and kind of figure out who your customers are. Or maybe I'm doing weddings and I'm going to be aiming for this type of wedding, and then I'm going to do teen dances, I'm going to be doing these types of schools, and then I'm doing nightclubs, and I want to do you're going to identify who your customers are in this first step. Because if you don't know who's going to buy your service, you can never aim your marketing, you can never aim your business to hit these different areas. If you're like, I'm just going to sell to anybody who will buy my DJ company, yeah, that's like, if you don't have a target, you'll never hit. So step 1, who you're going to sell to. If there's a niche market you're going to work, this is where you're going to identify them. Number 2, you're going to identify in a couple of sentences your unique selling proposition. What makes you unique? Why are people going to buy from you? Are you a great mixer? Are you a great MC? Are you just passionate about music? What makes you unique? I mean, I got a lot of gear. So does everyone else with a credit card. That's not unique. But I can go and I can mix left-handed with my elbow touching my tongue. That's a skill that not everybody has. And that might be some way you could bundle that and make that your unique selling proposition. What makes you unique? You get a couple of sentences on that. Back when we first started, it was my massive music collection was good enough. And then having a feel for playing music for the people on the dance floor was good enough. Today, if I'd be doing this, I would be talking about more of my MC skills and my ability to read the crowd and to create unique moments is what it has changed. So it evolves over time. But you got to find what makes you unique in your market. Number 3. You got to figure out what it kind of goes with the number one, where I'm going to be, you want to know who you're going to sell and then what you're going to be selling to them. Am I going to be selling them just DJ services? Am I going to be selling them DJ and photo booth? Am I going to be selling some consulting with them? Am I going to be selling teen dances and I'm going to be selling large, what you got to figure out what your inventory is going to be. Number three is basically what are you going to sell? And again, a couple of sentences on what you're going to be selling to the crowd. Number four is how are you going to reach these customers? How are you going to do some prospecting? How are you going to engage people to get them to buy from you? And this is starting to get into your marketing area just a little bit of how I'm going to do that. Am I going to be going and networking with people to get my name out there? How am I going to do that? You have to have a little bit of a plan of how you're going to get off the ground. If you show your guide, this business plan guide to someone to get financing, these are the types of things, the information they want to know. It's like, okay, so you know you're going to sell and you're going to offer these types of shows. Great. Now, how are you going to find your customers? Oh, I don't know. They're going to find me. Yeah, no. You've got to have a thought in your head of how are you going to find these people and putting together kind of a marketing plan. Number five, once you've got your customers figured out what you're going to sell to them and such, and add kind of a price point in what you want to sell, you're going to need to be going through and getting some income projections. Because you have to be able to go and say, you know what, I think if I can do this and this and this, I'm going to be able to bring in $10,000 this year, whatever it may be. But you need to be understanding that we're getting back to what I talked about earlier, having a goal, an income goal. This is where you would put this in. This is going to change because your business plan is kind of a working guide. It's not a one-time and then walk away from it. But what's your goal, your income projections and such? That would be your fifth thing that you'd want to jot down. Number six is looking at what resources that you have and what resources you're going to need to be purchasing. So let's say I want to expand and add photo booth as a photo booth division to my company. In my resources, well, what I would need to be doing is I need to now invest in that and add those resources. I have all this, but I need to be doing this. Or I don't own any of it, and now I have to go out and be renting this stuff, or I need to be buying this stuff. Again, these are things that you need to have and have thought out. Again, just kind of think of all this as what you would need to have in front of a banker to convince them that you know what the heck you're talking about. This is part of it. What kind of resources are out there? What do you need to function? Number seven is some of the things, the activities. I call it key activities. The key activities that you need to do on a daily basis to run this business, or let's make it weekly. I need to maintain website. I need to be doing things on social media. I need to be going to different networking groups and talking to them. There's key activities that I need to be doing to make this business run. Cleaning gear after a weekend that I was out in the dust pits, maintaining things, tightening up, whatever. But key activities that you're going to be doing on a regular basis. Again, this is to think more about your time management here, but it's very important to have down so you know in advance that, okay, this is going to take a lot of time for me to be updating this or changing that or fixing that every week. Next I would add is any kind of networking opportunity or networking circles that you're going to be doing. Maybe you're going to be networking with other DJs in your market, or you're going to network with venues in your market. I would actually have this in my business plan because, again, this is something once it's down in writing and I see, wow, okay, I want to network with venues in my market because that's part of my plan to be successful. That's going to be something that'll say, yeah, I need to go out. MJ, you a prime example. You have a night off. What are you doing?
I'm out somewhere. I just texted a couple people before we started the show about tomorrow night, about going somewhere networking with some other people. So that's a big part. If you're doing wedding stuff, you can network with venues, you can network with photography companies, you can network with videographers, cake makers, everything you can think of, making friends, making connections, and you never know, out of 100 of them, 2 might pay off. But those 2 you didn't have before you networked. Exactly.
So putting it down in writing. And again, some of this is common sense that we'd be putting down in this little business guide. And we're going to just call it a guide because I like that better than a plan. But your business guide, but having it in writing is just one more step into ingraining it into your thought process as you're putting your business together. And the last, eventually you're going to need to get into your cost, the whole cost side of it. You're looking at all the different expenses and doing expense projections. This might be something that's moved up a little bit higher in the process, but you're going to get, okay, now I've got this much gear and I know I need to be making this much a week to cover our expenses. But you have to, at some point in time, be going through and making the ends meet. that my expenses and my income, and when we push them all together, hopefully there's something that falls out that's in the black and not in the red. Doesn't happen right away.
I was going to say, be prepared too. That's another thing that you would have to put into your business plan, is to be prepared if the first few tries you don't succeed as well as you thought you should.
Oh, exactly. That's what as I've had the when I presented this back in to the early 2000s, I presented it talking about a business plan and how to get started. And one of the questions came up right away was, okay, how much money should I have in reserve? And it's like, doesn't matter. No matter how much money you have in reserve, it's not enough for that first year. If you had $1,000, you needed 10. If you had $10,000, you're going to find out you needed $100,000. It's one of those things that you do the best you can, and you make things work. Because if you don't, yeah, you won't be in business long.
Yeah. And it will wear on you too. Like John talked about earlier, it's more than just even the financial success. It's the mental peace you have doing through all this.
Oh, for sure. That just eats at a person. And some people handle stress better than others. And that's, getting back to the beginning point. Don't do it unless you have a burning desire to be an entrepreneur, to be self-employed, and to be performing in front of people. Because all these little things, I've run into numerous people who are just gray and miserable and hair falling out in chunks because they could not handle the stress of being self-employed. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. It's for some people it works, some people it doesn't. Okay, so that was just an overview of our business guide, business plan, and we'll again, if you have questions on that, Drax and I did a couple of videos on that, and we went really in depth, piece by piece, in creating a larger business plan. And there's some good information there. You can certainly check that out. Just go to our YouTube channel and search for that.
I also wrote an article that was in Disc Jockey News a while back about the business plan. Maybe we'll repost it on the page or something.
Good idea. Good idea. Yeah, just borrow money from John. Yeah, that'll get you. I think I have 37 cents, Jimmy.
You're going to be fighting 11 kids for that.
Yeah, exactly. There's no money. They can't even get food. They're out there trying to kill animals as they run by. But anyway, the next, getting back to our main now. So we've gotten our name figured out. We've got our domains and everything. We've gotten a business plan put together. Now, this is something MJ mentioned earlier, is the EIN, the Federal Employee Identification Number. Now, if I'm a sole proprietor, I technically, and I do not have any employees, I technically don't need the EIN number, and I can use my Social Security number. Most people nowadays do not want to do that because you have to write that down, and it's going to sit in the desk at somebody's place, an identity, what have you. So you can get an EIN number. It does. I don't think there's a cost to it. You just go to irs.gov and you fill in the forms. It's quick and fairly easy. What's really kind of cool is that as long as you're not calling in the middle of tax season, if you have questions, you can call them up and they'll walk you through it and take you in. They're actually very helpful, which is really surprising. You wouldn't expect that. But that is the number that when you're going to be paid over $600 for an event, that's what the schools will want, or the bars will want. Couples, they don't care. This is not something. Maybe eventually that'll be something that if the tax codes change, but it's easy to do. You get your EIN or federal FEIN number, a tax ID number, and you're good to go. The next thing, once you have that number, now you can go up to the local bank and you can say, hey, I need an account, and get that set up. Until you have that, you either have to run it under your Social Security number, which then means you have, awesome mobile DJ, John Young, DBA, doing business as Awesome Mobile DJ. But now you can go and you can get Awesome Mobile DJ set up as its own identity, which is so much nicer. In many parts of the world, there's different fees now. In our situation, we have both our credit union accounts and we have bank accounts at a bank. So we have our credit union checking and savings, and then we have our bank. Depending upon where you're at and what your banks are doing, there can be fees on the checks and fees on this and that and the other thing. I mean, it's incredible how that's changed in the last 3 years. It used to be that everything was free in our neck of the woods, and now, if I have too many checks coming in the course of a month, I get dinged. If I have too many checks going out, I get dinged. If I have digital transactions, they're like, oh, we love those, which is weird because when we first started, they used to charge us for
charges for that. Yeah.
So you got to check it out. Most of you have your personal accounts, and where you do that is great. We found out though that our business works much better at a credit union in our area than it does at the bank. It's just the way it works. The personal account works fine at a bank, but the credit union was much better when it came to business accounts. So check that out. Get the bank account opened. I would also keep that separate for tax purposes from your personal funds. and be able to pay yourself out of that. Even if you are a sole proprietor, I still would keep it separate because it's going to make it a lot easier if you ever get to the point of being audited. And audit's a whole another topic, but when it comes to audits, those bank accounts are what they dig into. So
yeah, I like it for the fact that now you can get a debit card for an account and do all your expenses on that. And it's really easy to track your business expenses because you're putting them all on one debit card that is the business debit card.
And that works so much better because then when you go to get into that audit situation, and again, it depends on your auditor. And let's take 2 minutes on this. A friend just had an audit situation, and the auditor that went through his books went down and wanted every receipt, wanted to see each and every receipt from five or 6 years prior, which no one keeps receipts that long. You're supposed to be 3 years is generally what you're keeping, but that's what they did. When we personally had an audit go through, they did not care about that. They took Visa statements. When I had a Visa statement and it showed that I was buying something from American Airlines at the time, that was travel because it was airfare. The auditor that my friend had, they wanted to see the receipt to make sure it was complete travel and it wasn't something else. So it's going to depend on auditors, but keeping separate accounts like that helps tremendously when that time does come, because it eventually probably will come for everybody. Number 5 in this sequence is figuring out. Number 5 in this sequence is to kind of figure out where you're going to be doing business. Are you going to be doing a home-based business? Are you going to be renting an office space? Are you going to be doing business out of your car? I mean, it is possible that you could go that far and not have a home-based business.
Local coffee shop office.
Local coffee shop, yes. And there's many people do. I mean, in South Dakota, there's this really cool place called the Bakery. And what that is basically an office building that people are members of, and they can go in there during the day, and it's kind of like a public library-esque feel, and they can do their business. They can run their business out of that, and then they can go home. Why is that appealing and not have their business at home? Well, when you're doing a home-based business, and some of you do this and you might have experience in this, is that your insurance, there's differences with insurance. When you have a business in the home, there's insurances that don't want to deal with that, or they'll jack your rates up, or they'll change it and okay, we'll cover this, but not that. That happens. If you have a business in your home, your mortgage companies are going to look at that much differently. Oh, you have a business in your home? Well, let me just change this interest rate over here. Well, no, we won't even cover it at this one. We're going to take you over here where it's a little bit different. We're going to cover you that way. Property taxes is probably the biggest one. Property taxes, if you've got a commercial business in your home, they will jack you around like there's no tomorrow. It's just crazy. So if you are doing that, there's the ability, you want to fly under the radar, maybe, that you can try it and go from there. Or you can just have your business and do your things. And when you have a home-based business, there's different deductions you can take on the expenses of the house. You can take a proportionate rate on that. And again, this is your accountant doing this, but there are deductions you can take. They get flagged and they're like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that and such. But you know what? If you have a good accountant who does things by the book, they will take care of you. But you need to decide on what you're going to do. Overall, Lori and I looked at it. We actually have this office building that I'm in right now. This is a commercial building on our property. If we would not have this as a commercial building, it would save us about $2,000 a year between additional taxes and commercial insurance that we wouldn't need if we weren't running a business out of this building. So then it's like, okay, that's $2,000 that I could have been putting towards rental of maybe an office in town. These are things a person has to weigh out. Do I need to have more storage? And maybe that $2,000 would have helped to buy a garage with a front office in town. Things you got to think about. Okay, so once we've got our name, we've got our numbers, and we're ready. We got our figured out where we're going to be. We got to think about licensing. In some jurisdictions, there are licensing for any business that you have. Sometimes you just have to go get an assumed name in Minnesota, and that's basically about it. But in some areas, there's a city license because they want to know if you're doing a business out of your home again. Oh, did I mention that tax thing? They want to know that so they can send the person over. There might be a city license. There might be a county license. Some states might have a license. In Minnesota, we don't have any requirement for what we do. But that, I think, is going to be one of those things that is going to change as we go forward, since there's so many people that have home-based businesses. I think they're going to get to the point where they're going to try to keep track of those, keep tabs on those a little bit more.
Get extra money.
Get extra money. Really, that's what it is. So it's an area in which you're going to have to get a feel for and check out. And if you're wanting to fly under the radar, you may not want to ask too many questions. Go into the attorney's office and say, so I got this friend, see, who wants to start a business. But make sure you do that, because there's nothing worse than getting to you're 5 years down the road and like, oh my gosh, maybe I should have done that, or maybe I didn't reserve my name properly, or whatever. And once you're beyond a point of getting it fixed cheaply, or doing it cheaply the first time. So getting a license is an important thing. Sales tax might be part of your world. Some states services are taxed, most are not. That can change as again the local municipalities are needing money. Some cities have sales tax. You got to know what you have if you have a sales tax. In Minnesota, we have this thing called a use tax. So if I'm buying something from a different state and there isn't sales tax on it because it's an out-of-state purchase, I'm technically required to go and calculate, okay, about $1,000 item, I need to calculate what the sales tax is, and I need to write a check out and send that to the state of Minnesota on a regular basis. Do people do that? Most don't, but it is something that you're supposed to do. Sales tax is something to be aware of if you need to charge it and if you need to be paying it through other events, because those are the types of things that can catch you down the road. Okay, that's enough of the government side of it. Where are we at for time? I think we're going to hit one more, and then I think that'll wrap us up. And this is the area of numbers. The setting up we have our bank account, and setting up a method of accounting and record keeping is a big part. And getting back to really the beginning, when we talked about the ability to have a goal and have a way to keep track of your progress, there's numerous programs out there that you can use for maintaining that. DJ Event Planner, as an example, one of our sponsors that are with us tonight, has an area in which it will go and give you all of your totals at the end of the year, and it'll allow you to download those and have that information to keep records of that. If you're a QuickBooks person or a Quicken or whatever, there's just so many different avenues. If you're the one that wants to write it on a ledger, you put that quill behind your ear and you get the ink tank out and whatever it is. But set it up in advance before you start, because once you start booking events and the business starts rolling, you're like, yeah, okay, I got that box over there, receipts. I'm gonna do that. I got the invoice. I'm gonna get to that. It never happens. So set that up in advance and make sure you are there. Actually, I'm going to hit the next two topics quick, and then the last one is one we're going to we'll make into a different show. Because the next one was basically the development of the identity of your business. Going back to our business plan, what it is, and now it's time to develop that identity and to get the word out in the process of that. Because if you don't tell people about it and create that identity, create that branding is the best way to describe it. Brand identity, yeah, is huge, and that's going to include getting your cards and your logos and all these different things put together.
There are companies out there that are dedicated to simply that, helping you create a brand identity. For sure, and some of them are worth a hoot, and that's frustrating is that some are worse than doing it yourself. Mm-hmm. And then you want to make sure before you go out and do any events or do anything really in public, you want to make sure you're insured properly. And that might mean that you have business insurance for your property for people coming over to make sure that they're covered if they could get hurt on your property. Your gear, if you're going to be doing that, liability insurance, the protections, make sure you have that before you go out the door. It doesn't cost a ton. You can generally under $300, you can get some basic liability insurance in this day and age for your entertainment company, but make sure you have that. Then the last part, and this is something we'll actually cover in the next show. We're not going to get into this one too much. Is to getting the word out and marketing, and to develop that idea. And I wanted to really dig into the marketing side of it when you're first starting out, because it's a lot of the other things are like, okay, it's like a checkbox. Okay, I got my name, check. I got this, check. I got this, check. Now we get into marketing and creating a marketing plan. This is way more than just a checkbox. This is starting a process, and really it's a multi-pronged process that you'll be starting in that. So we're up to the marketing plan, and that's something we're going to dig into in a future show on a Wednesday night, and go in that for a starting out your business, whether it's a photo booth business. Now from this point on, we're going to take it probably more from the photo booth side for those of you who would be launching a photo booth business, and we're going to start to develop a marketing plan for that. So cool. That's our show for tonight. Thank you guys for hanging with us. Were there any questions, MJ, that
beyond Jimmy's.
No, they
Jimmy.
were just following along with everything you were saying and agreeing or different things like that. They talked about insurance and different things up in there, but it was definitely it's something that even if you have your business running, there's still points you made tonight that person would have to think about as it grows too. So
yeah, for sure. And that's, as I said earlier, when the business plan, the business guide, I like calling it the guide better. It's a living, breathing document. It's something you get it there, and then you revisit it, and you revisit it, and you will be rewriting it to a point in some aspect on a yearly basis, especially as you're adding things to your service, or you've gone through and you've evaluated and you're eliminating things. I mean, I used to have a photo booth, and I had put my plan together of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to run it. I think we ran it for 2 years, and I looked at it and it was not doing anything like I wanted it to do. So I got rid of it. Now, as I sit here today, I have one coming in a few days, another one, going a different direction on how we're going to be utilizing that within our company. So yeah, wonderful. We'll be back in about 10 minutes with our Socially Mobile tonight. And tonight's topic on Socially Mobile is about Twitter. And of course, I was the one who took it as, is Twitter dead? But then I thought, maybe what I should do is I should go get my Donald Trump wig and I could be pumping Twitter tonight. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Twitter is not dead. It's like anything else. It's changing. It's not at the forefront of all of them, but he is going to cover a lot of really important information tonight about Twitter.
Yeah, it's going to be a good show. So we'll be back in about 15 minutes tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern, and we'll catch you then. Thank you much for watching.